What I'd like to do today is give you a flavour of Africa, and I think I'm reasonably well qualified for that. I think there's 54 countries in Africa, and I've travelled to over 40 of them. I've missed out on places like Somalia, which I'm not particularly interested in, but by and large, wherever it is over the years, I've got there. This is very much the philosophy of Sandvik, and it's very much the philosophy of our customers. If we can't mine safely, we shouldn't do it. 15 years ago, I don't think anybody from the mining industry would say that. But certainly today, when I talk to my peers, I talk to our competitors, and I talk to our customers, that's very much the philosophy. So where are we, and what are we doing? This gives you an idea of where the Sandvik results are for the period from 2005 to 2009, middle of the year. And we've had over a 10 or 11-fold improvement in our lost time incident frequency rate. And these are measured exactly the same way as the mining houses do. It's lost time incidents per million man-hours worked. And in fact, before I came here today, our September, which is our Q3 results, came out, and we're now down to 0.8 as a lost time incident on a 12-month moving average. But that still means that we have people that do get injured within our organisation, and we have to work constantly to get it better. And the reason we're able to get it better is very much what we see down here and here. This is very much the lagging indices, as is this. We're reporting the past. But if we look at the near misses, and if we look at the hazard reports, and we take the learning from those, we can be a developing organisation that's looking at constant improvement. What I want to do now is talk to you about what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is some of the good parts of Africa, as is that. I thought I'd show you the picture of me on the beach, but I see that they took that out. Oh, we have Cape Town, which is also good, and the waterfront. But that's the reality of life, not just in South Africa, but in many of the countries throughout Africa. As is that. People having to carry water to move through, minimal electricity. And then we get into the ugly. I had a couple of photos in here which were actually cut, but they are very, very ugly of what happens in parts of Africa. So what about Africa? I'll come to the landmass a little bit later and how to relate that to other parts of the world. But in rough terms, we've got 30 million square kilometers of land in Africa. 54 countries, of which 24 this year are going through elections. And some of them, as has just recently happened in Zambia, are going through transition with their governments. We have a population which is close to 15% of the world population, and by the year 2050 is estimated to be 24% of the world population. But what is scary is if you look at the age that people work, typically from about 17 to 60, roughly 50% of the world's population that are in that active age group will be in Africa. So there will be major changes in global companies in terms of where they do business, where they manufacture things, and where they have the people to support them. We have an internet usage which is only 5.6% of the world's usage. Compare that with 15% of the population. We've got a very long way to go. And we have a GDP of $1,700 per person. But the range is we have some people, and in fact many people in Africa, that are living on less than $1 a day. Yet we have some countries where the GDP is 13 to 15,000 US dollars. And there I'm referring specifically to countries such as Botswana. One of the other ways you get a view of Africa is you look at the stuff that's put out by Transparency International in terms of their corruption index. And not surprisingly, the developed part of the world, the Asia Pacifics, the Americas, and the Europe score very highly. They're all in the 9s or in the 8 or the very high 8s. Then we come to Africa. Botswana is at best, less than 6. South Africa is 4.5. Then we look down into countries where SADC has a footprint. Ghana, Zambia, Mozambique, the DRC. And you start to understand why we have to work as an organisation, not necessarily with governmental authorities, but very much with customers who are private enterprise. We work with the contractors. We work with the mining houses. And our experience is it's a waste of time even having the discussions with the governments there in terms of governmental work, because you won't meet our values. I spent some time this year, I had almost 6 weeks living in China, living in Shanghai, looking after our region China. Now, to give you a little bit of perspective, because here we look at growth, and this growth looks quite incredible with these parts of the world being well over 10 million people. Shanghai, which is one city, the current population best estimate is 23 million people. And there's a further 2 million people that they consider as illegal. So very much like we have the issues here in South Africa, they have that issue in China as well. So 25 million people, or half of South Africa's population, is in one city. Now, when you get to cities of this kind of size, what does it mean? Well, if I take the Shanghai experience that I had, they have 284, and still counting, what they call skyscrapers. And they define a skyscraper as having more than 50 floors. So it's a very different lifestyle that you have if you go into that kind of community. This is a map I love when I try and explain Africa to my colleagues. If you take the landmass of China, if you take the landmass of India, if you take the landmass of Central Europe, Scandinavia, the UK, North America, and Argentina, you can actually put it into the landmass of Africa. And it starts to help you to understand the logistics that we have if we want to be a totally African and not a Southern African or an East African organisation. It also gives you an idea of where the potential is. That's a very simplified map of what we believe will happen in the next 10 years. Moving out of Mauritania, where we already are working extensively with SNIM, we're going to see iron ore projects around the west of Africa. We have gold already there. There's petrochemical work already there. Where our challenges are going to be is in this area of the Congo. And the reason I say that is if you fly from South Africa to Kinshasa, to Lubumbashi, it takes you just over 2 hours. If you try to fly from here up to Kivu province, it takes you another 2 hours. If you try to go by road from Johannesburg into the Congo, it takes you probably 3 days today with the stops at the borders. If you try to go from Lubumbashi to Kivu province, 2 months, 3 months, there's no roads. 4x4, no roads, often doing 8 to 10 kilometres an hour. That's the reality of the logistics. And until we get the logistics right in Africa, it will be very difficult to do business. An example that was in the papers here, I actually had a look at yesterday's paper this morning, but there's a very good example there where they are talking to the mining houses in the Congo at the moment, looking for additional rail capacity. The Chinese have been slow to come forward for the money, so they're with a begging bowl at the moment, asking the mining companies to find $200 million to help improve the railway lines so that they can get the minerals out. Very quick summary. I don't want to go into detail, just take a look. But Africa is probably the wealthiest continent in the world when it comes to minerals. But it has some challenges. And the first one, we've heard a lot from Mark Kudifani, we've heard a lot from the major mining houses talking about this nationalisation issue in South Africa. Until that is resolved, it will be very difficult to get major capital investment into this part of the world. But it's not just South Africa. If you go to Zimbabwe, they're looking at 51% indigenisation of your local company. And I came from a board meeting for our Algerian operation we had it on Sunday in the Middle East. And part of the challenge that we have there is that we want to reinvest and refinance or recapitalise our organisation. If we recapitalise our organisation, because we're changing the nature of the business and the shareholder funds that are in it, we have to give up 30% of our business. So there are challenges throughout Africa. It's not just a South African problem with regard to nationalisation. We have political instability. I talk of 2 countries there. But again, if you go to the north of the DRC in Kivu, there is constant problems with incursions from across the border. And I'm not even going into what's happening in Kenya with the people getting kidnapped into Somalia. And we have the issue of mining-related taxes. Whenever the metal prices are good, all of the governments see an opportunity to raise the value of the royalties on that part of the world. So again, from stability, mining houses like stability. And if there is not stability, they do that and they assess it as a risk. And again, when they look on a global basis, they may well say that that is not the right place to invest. And there is the availability of skills. And it's the availability in 2 ways. I came back last week. I was in India. We had a group meeting. And one of the things that came up there is the shortage of skills, not just in Africa, but in the mining industry worldwide, and in particular in Australia. And the number that was put on the table is there are 30,000 currently open jobs in the mining industry in Australia. Now you couple that to the shortage of skills here in Africa, and in particular the difficulty that we have to get work permits to put our people into other parts of Africa, you start to understand the magnitude of the situation. And I think that one, you read the papers in South Africa, you look anywhere in Africa, is a challenge. And maybe the final one is physically moving things around Africa is not easy. It's very easy to bring things in from the north into Africa, but the routes from Africa going round, the shipping lines into, say, East Africa, or the shipping lines to go back up into West Africa, are far more infrequent. And drills and rock tools don't travel that well by air. Well, they do, because we do it a lot, but it all costs us a lot of money. But what are the opportunities? Africa is one of the best parts of the world at present to find new ore bodies. Simon, last week we sold 20 exploration rigs to Angola. Yeah. But people are investing money getting into parts of Africa that wouldn't normally happen. And within 3 to 5 years, the guys will have drilled, they'll have done the bankable feasibility studies, and there'll be new projects going forward. There's untapped resources. People say it's the black continent. It's not that dark. You know, we can get out there, we can find things. It just needs brave travelers. And we need the people. It's all of us. We spend an enormous amount of money in Sandvik. Over the last few years, we've put 530 people through our apprentice programs. We have this year just over 200 people going through our apprentice program. So we're investing in the future because we believe in Africa. And then the final thing I'd like to talk here, and then I'll give you some examples, is we believe that it's not just good enough to do things internally in your organization. If you want to work externally and if you want to work in countries in Africa, you've got to be accepted as part of the community and just not an intruder. In South Africa, the legislation is very clear. If you're working in the mining industry and you're selling capital equipment, there's a percentage that you have to invest in corporate social responsibility. Those laws don't or aren't in place formally further north, but we try to do something. Just a very quick window. What is Sandvik Mining and Construction Africa? We have 12 companies, operate in 12 countries, and somewhere in the region of 3,250 people. We have 8 dealers that look after our business, or distributors operating throughout Africa. Our intention is to increase our footprint. We'll put in a minimum of 4 a year for the next 3 years. And in addition to that, we'll look at new organisations or Sandvik organisations. This year, Mozambique, we open a formal company there. Now come to the corporate social responsibility. I'm going to let you read those words. They're not mine. They were written by my managing director in Zambia, because he feels very strongly that the best way for us to be successful is to have a relationship with the community and have a relationship with the government and the country. But what does it mean? That's a list, and it's by no means comprehensive, of the organisations in Zambia that we support. And if I look at the Salem Children's Village, we first got involved with them in 1998. So we've had 13 years of corporate social responsibility there. It gives you an idea of some of the things we're currently doing at Salem, but we've built, this essentially is a home for orphans whose parents have died of HIV/AIDS. We've built dormitories for them, we've built schools for them over the years. This is some of the work that we're doing currently. The Kitwe Central Hospital, I actually visited this with the Swedish ambassador 2 years ago when we first started working there. I wouldn't like to go to that hospital if it was me. So we're looking at what we can try to do to help improve it. One of the drivers that we've had is Caroline, who's John Oberg, who's our MD's wife. And this is an interesting story. She and John come from Perth. So they're back in Perth, and some people approached them and said, you guys live in Africa, you know, what's it like, what's happening? And the press picked up the story that Sandvik was involved with these issues of social responsibility in Zambia, and we were looking for support. And that's the outcome. And these things, we get a couple of containers coming in every month or every 6 weeks to support the work that we have in the country, old toys, old clothes, old blankets, and we're putting those out into the organisations that we work with. But we're not just alone in working there. We work through all of Africa, and here's a few examples of the work that we do in West Africa, and in particular in Ghana. This is a lovely story. We have a contract with Goldfields. You all know Goldfields as an organisation. Well, we have 24 Pantera 1500s that drill roughly 15,000 drill meters every month. So we have a contract with them that we call a centimetre contract. Every metre that we drill, there's 1 US cent that goes into this kitty. So at the end of a year, there's about 60,000 US dollars. And with the Goldfields corporate social responsibility and with the community there, or their people there, we pick a specific project that needs to be done that we 100% support. So this school was built with $60,000 of our money. Another school that we've done, a midwife school. And what we did there is we built the hostel that could put the people in. So I guess that's very much the picture of Africa, but I'd like to leave you with a couple of comments. And really one of them came from a T-shirt that I wore last week at a management meeting. And it shows a picture of Africa, and the words on it says, "Africa's not for sissies." And I really believe that. I believe there's a lot of challenges here in this part of the world. But the opportunities that we have are phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's time for some questions. I've got a question from my side. And just remember, Chris is going to be here for the next 10, 15 minutes. So this is the chance to ask some questions. And then he's probably on another plane. Chris, everyone talks about possible double dips. And there's concerns about the mining investment and so on. What's your outlook on Africa in the next 5 years?
That's a very good question. I can go to it with one example. We had an incredibly bad dip in 2008 worldwide. Parts of Sandvik on a worldwide basis, their revenue stream dropped by 40%. They got the flu. Africa's revenue stream dropped by 4% on 2007, and it dropped by 10% against what we budgeted. So the way I describe it is we got a little bit of a cold. I think that there's always going to be this situation where if it's a mining house or a medium-tier mining house that has to finance a project, and there really is a financial crisis, the banks will pull back the money. And then those guys will not go ahead with that investment at that time. But if you take a 5-year view, I think we could have some tough times in the next 18 months. But I believe in the world, and I believe that things will come right, and I think there will be opportunities.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chris? Martin? Is the microphone coming your way?
Chris, thank you very much. We have offices in Ghana, Zambia, and we intended to open an office in Namibia.
Yep.
Challenges that we have faced is to become a corporate citizen in that country. So we are comfortable with Zambia and Ghana in particular. Sometimes there's a misperception on the South African side as to how safe is your investment in that particular country or countries in Africa. I would like to learn your experience as a supplier of equipment, an investor in those countries, and how can you assure you get a return on your investment? Thank you.
I think it's very difficult to ever ensure that you get a return on your investment, and I can only probably give you an example, a couple of examples. During the privatisation of ZCCM in the mid-90s, we were owed by ZCCM somewhere in the tune of $12 million US. We continued doing business with them over the next 2 years, and we probably did $20 million of further business. And when the privatisation took place, we were owed $500,000. So they, to all intents and purposes, they were current. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But we engaged with the right people, and we put a plan together, and we were very open with them because we were having to sell our plan to our group management. And we said, if there are challenges, if you have a problem in terms of a payment, tell us early, before the expected date, and tell us what your plan is to do it. And we had a couple of hiccups along the way, but fortunately we didn't have a hiccup for the first 6 months, so I guess they scored there. The challenge that I think you'll get with an investment is really going to be around, does a government change the rules in terms of local ownership? And in most instances, local ownership means a free ride. Yeah, they'll pay for it, but they'll pay for it out of the dividend flow over a number of years. I can't control that, but I've come to the conclusion that doing business in Africa is sufficiently attractive that if and when those issues come, we'll try and deal with them. But typically, the more difficult a place is to do work, especially if you're a contractor, the higher the bar is set in terms of the drill price per metre. And if I look at some of the costs that I've seen from exploration drilling in the DRC, it's a pretty attractive business for somebody to be in. I hope that answers your question. Anything else?
Any other questions? Anyone wants to know what it takes to do business in Africa? Chris has used the company as an example, but it's applicable to any other company that wants to be successful in Africa. Yeah. We've got a question over here. Let me just give this mic.
Hi, Chris. I'm Darren Marder from Anglo American. You mentioned a couple of the challenges in Africa on the infrastructure side. And we've seen over the past, I'd say, decade or so, the influence of China in Africa and their business model of developing infrastructure for mineral resources. Do you think that's the right model for Africa? Or what do you think is the right model for Africa?
I think we've got to face reality. The infrastructure's not there at the moment, so somebody's got to be prepared to do it. What the Chinese have done, and we work quite extensively with the Chinese in Zambia and the DRC, what the Chinese have done is made a conscious decision, and not a 3 to 5 year decision, but a 20 to 30 year decision, that they want access to the mineral wealth of Africa. They want access to world-class projects. And in part, putting the money in the infrastructure is giving them the opportunity to have oil reserves. It's the opportunity where the governments are paying them back in minerals. It's more difficult for a mining house to take that kind of decision. But I think if you had a consortium of mining houses, and to give you an example, if I look at Northern Kivu province, and I look at the gold projects which are there for Banro, for Randgold, for Anglo Gold Ashanti, there's sufficient opportunity and there's sufficient mineral wealth there that maybe what it will take is, as part of the so-called free ride that the government would want, is rather than that, make a commitment to invest in the infrastructure. But you need pretty brave gonads to do business in Africa. And that's going to require a lot of money. That part of the world is not easy to get to.
Any other questions? Questions for Chris? Chris, thank you very much. Thanks for your
thank
time.
you all.
We've got a small token of appreciation.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming.
Okay, apologies, guys. I've got a few other things at the moment. It wasn't mentioned, but as of the 1st of the year, I have a new role. I still have my African role, but they decided Africa didn't have enough countries. So they've given me Europe, the CIS, and the Middle East. And we're busy at the moment just trying to put the organisation structures together. But I'll see you all for dinner tomorrow night. Thanks very much. Yeah.